What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Another fun video for you guys. This one we're actually going to be playing Esper Mill in Historic. So the way this deck came about was this enchantment here, Lich's Mastery for 3 black, black, black. Get a legendary enchantment with hexproof. Excuse me. It says you cannot lose the game. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. Whenever you lose life, for each 1 life you lose, exile a permanent you control or a card from your hand or graveyard. And when Lich's Mastery leaves the battlefield, you lose the game. So, as long as you have ways to gain life, you can continue drawing cards. If your opponent does deal damage to you, you have to exile cards. However, that can be from your graveyard, it can be from your hand, or it can be from the battlefield. So the idea is that if someone can kind of push too much damage across, then eventually you'll be forced to exile your own Lich's Mastery, and then that will lose you the game. However, you do not die for direct damage. So definitely been plenty of aggressive matchups where I've dropped this and I've lost a bunch of life. We've gone into the negative life total, but with Lich's Mastery, you don't lose the game, and then if you can find some life gain cards, you can kind of keep drawing, and you can find those board clears and things like that. And so for me, the best way to build this, I thought, was like in a mill strategy. And particularly this enchantment right here, Psychic Corrosion for 2 and a blue. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. So you're trying to get your Psychic Corrosion down whenever you feel it's safe. So that's why just the 3 of, it's nice to have like 1 or 2 of these down. That can kind of help close out the game with the Lich's Mastery as you gain life, draw cards, and then continue to mill out your opponent. Because you don't always want to play this on turn 3. You might need to leave some counter magic backup. Or you might just need to have cast removal against those aggressive decks. So that's why I've just the 3 of. And we're trying to be as versatile as possible with removal and some counter spells as well. So I'm just kind of trying to free up some slots as well. So same thing, just the 2 Lich's Mastery. It is legendary. I mean, having 2 of them down doesn't do anything for you. So you want to find one, and only to play it when you are ready. And of course, triple black, it means you don't always be able to play it on 6, even if you want to, because you are in a 3-color deck. Most of the time, it's not really a problem, but yeah, just the 2 of for me. So the way we're going to get there is a couple of Search for Azcanta, another 2-mana enchantment spell. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You can put it into your graveyard. Then if you have 7 more cards in your graveyard, you may transform Search for Azcanta. So this right here is just a control powerhouse here, as it kind of fixes your draws. And then once you transform it, you can tap for blue mana, or you can pay 3, look at the top 4 cards of your library, and reveal any non-creature, non-land card from among them, put it into your hand. We are not playing any creatures, so this is basically going to dig, and we can kind of go 4 cards deep and find whatever we want. If we are needing our Lich's Mastery, if we need a counter spell, if we need Settle the Wreckage, Shatter the Sky, something like that, this kind of helps us dig for whatever we need. Of course, we're dirty control Esper deck, so we're running all 4 Thought Erasures. We do need to be aware of some things like Cleansing Nova or River's Rebuke. If our opponent, or even Planar Cleansing, if our opponent resolves one of those with a Lich's Mastery, then the Lich's Mastery would leave the battlefield, and then we would lose the game. So we do need to have some proactive answers for that. And of course, we also have counter spells as well to kind of protect our enchantments. As for blue and a black, we can look at target player's our opponent's hand and choose any non-land card from it and make them discard. And then, of course, we get the Surveil to kind of fix our draws. Golden Egg seems a little awkward, but just being able to draw, replace itself for 2 mana, when it enters, we draw a card. We can also sack it to add 1 mana of any color, so it can make some fixing, depending on the situation. Or, once we have our Lich's Mastery out, we can pay 2 to sacrifice it and gain some life. And of course, in an emergency against those aggressive decks, we can just gain life just to kind of help buy us time till we can find our removal or our Lich's Mastery. But yeah, being able to sack it, gain 3 life, and then draw 3 cards off Lich's Mastery, especially with Psychic Corrosion and things like that, is just super powerful. A couple Banishing Lights, just a nice versatile removal spell, as we can exile any target non-land permanent and opponent controls. And a couple Sinister Sabotage, just super powerful counter spell, and also has the upside of Surveil 1. And then a couple of absorbs. I mean, if we use this to protect our Lich's Mastery against like a Cleansing Over or something like that, we get to counter that spell, and we get to gain 3 life, which means we get to draw 3 cards. So this works really, really well in the late game. A couple of Mortifies, just kind of instant speed interaction, especially if our opponent is in white and they have enchantment removal as well. We can kind of get rid of that and get our Psychic Corrosion back or things like that. A couple of Settle the Wreckage for those really aggressive decks, especially gets around like things like Hexproof. So if someone's running like Carnage Tyrant and Dinosaurs, I don't really see too many people running Carnage Tyrants anymore. But, you know, Paradise Druids and Dream Trawlers and all that good stuff. And, of course, Shatter the Sky, just super powerful board clear right there. And also we're running the 3 Kaya's Wraths because we can destroy all creatures and we don't have our opponent drawing cards. And then for card draw here, Sphinx's Insight. Seems a little awkward, but when you consider that if we play this during our main phase, we gain 2 life, which basically means for 4 mana we get to draw 4 cards. So I think this works really well than like works better than like a Drawn from Dreams, because that doesn't actually count for drawing cards. You just dig through 7 cards and then pick 2 of them. So that does not trigger a Psychic Corrosion, whereas the Sphinx's Insight does. So yeah, that's why I went with Sphinx's Insight. And then Patient Rebuilding also works really, really well for a mill enchantment. As the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. Then you draw a card for each land card put into their graveyard this way. So if you can get this down in the late game, this was super powerful as it mills 3 cards, and then you get to draw cards if there's any land cards that were put that way. So I mean, you figure most decks have maybe about a third of their cards are lands, so you're going to get 1, maybe even 2 off of that. And then if you have a Psychic Corrosion down, you're going to mill out your opponent super fast that way. And so we do need a lot of lands. We are running 25 since we do have some card draw. I think 25 is the right number. I don't think you need to go any higher than that. We definitely don't want to be any lower either. So we're basically kind of running 1 of each of the basic, 1 plains, 1 island, although actually 1 Bojuka Bog instead of a swamp, as we can kind of exile our opponent's graveyard. And then 4 Hallowed Fountain, 2 Temple of Enlightenment, 1 Tranquil Cove. So we're playing the gain life lands as well as in the late game with the Lich's Mastery out. That means we'll get to draw a card. So that's pretty powerful right there. Play a land, draw a card. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And so the same thing with, you know, Godless Shrine, Scoured Barrens, Temple of Silence, and the Demir lands as well, Dismal Backwater, 2 Temple of Deceit, and then the 4 Watery Graves. And also 1 Field of Ruin just to kind of deal with any non-basics like Castle Locthwain, Castle Vantress, what is the Legion's Landing one, the Adanto's Fort or whatever it's called, other search for Azcantas that have flipped, Field of the Dead. There's just a lot of lands you need to worry about in Historic. And so Field of Ruin is kind of a nice catch-all. And since we do need lands in our deck, our deck is super mana intensive, very hungry. We don't necessarily want to play Ghost Quarter, we just have to lose the Ghost Quarter to get rid of a land. Field of Ruin, we can always search up one of our basics, unless of course we already have one out. That little bit of a downside since we are just running just the 2 basics. And going over our sideboard here, a couple of negates to kind of help us out in those, deal with those 3 troublesome cards, Planar Cleansing, Cleansing Nova, and River's Rebuke that would obviously end the game for us if they resolve with the Lich's Mastery down. A couple of Tyrant Scorn to kind of help us out with those aggressive matchups. And since we are in the late game and likely to get matched up against other Esper decks, a couple of Sorcerer's Spyglass shut down to fairies and things like that. Field of the Dead is such a problem, we have to play 2 of Virulent Plague. And just a 1 of Ashiok's Erasure. It's kind of an instant speed Ixalan's Binding, so we're going to try it out just as a 1 of. And Eat to Extinction is just a nice exile removal, especially for like Croxas and Uros and things like that. And since we are milling our opponent, a couple of Leyline of the Void, so everything that goes into their graveyard gets exiled instead. So, you know, I've seen some people trying to play the Arclight Phoenix decks again and things like that. So this works super well against them, shuts them down. And then Erebos Intervention, it's another way to gain life, but also removal as well. And also being able to exile cards from our opponent's graveyard. And Heliod's Intervention also has life gain, and also to get rid of artifacts or enchantments. So yeah, a lot of life gain synergy that works well with our game plan here. So we'll jump into some ranked and see how we do. Played this a little bit, and It's done okay in the current meta. There we go. It's being a little slow for some reason. Alright. Liches? No. Where are we at? There we go. Alright, jump into some ranked best of 3. Man, I love they just have like a casual historic best of 3 queue. Because ranked is just kind of... I mean, there's tons of versatility, but some of these decks are pretty out of control. Like, you know, Field of the Dead. Like, it's just such an obnoxious card. Like, you shouldn't just be able to just play lands and then pump out 2, 3, whatever zombie tokens. Just out of nowhere. It's just kind of silly. Alright, here we're up against Dr. Pepper 29. Alright, got the sweet dragon pet. Going first. I mean, it's not great, but we do get the Scryland and the Thought Erasure. So I think we'll try it. As long as it's not a super aggressive deck, then we should be okay. And we're just looking for lands at this point. We're just going to go to Thought Erasure until the following turn. Our opponent on an 88 card deck. Okay, mono red. This could be over quickly. Just don't understand why people play these 80 card decks. I mean, I know Arena kind of fixes the draws, has a tendency to do that, but I mean, that really shouldn't work. My opponent's in mono red and they're playing super slow. That's always fun to see. I think we just want a Thought Erasure, see if we can get a Cavalcade or see what's going on. Okay, our opponent's deck is all over the place. I mean, we have removal. They're not doing... I don't know what to make of our opponent's hand. I think the God Pharaoh statue is our biggest priority for the Thought Erasure next turn, but we'll see what they draw. Not too worried about the creatures. We can just kind of stabilize here. Draw some cards and we should be good. Okay, we're finding all of our lands. That's perfect. I don't think it matters what we play. We're going to gain some life. And next turn we can get our Psychic Corrosion online and get the milling in action. Kind of curious what the Fanatical Firebrand is for when they're playing all these big creatures. I'm guessing he's a newer player. Probably have to play this Tranquil Cove at some point, but we'll get our Temple down first to scry. Next turn we can Sphinx's Insight to draw a couple cards and gain some life. I don't hate the Thought Erasure. Yeah, that's fine. I like to have a lot of expensive spells, so I think having the Thought Erasure here in a couple turns will be useful. But I think we're just going to go for the Sphinx's Insight to draw a little bit of... Draw some more cards and gain a little bit of life. So our opponent, Naya. Naya all over the place. Sphinx's Insight first, see what we draw, and then we can kind of play a land based off of that. And if we draw a bunch of lands, we'll try to save this Tranquil Cove for after we get our Lich's Mastery down. We have to mill them a little bit. And next turn we'll have Search for Azcanta plus Sinister Sabotage. And that's pretty sweet. And then we can use the Search for Azcanta to find our third black mana source. And we get our Lich's Mastery down, and wrap up this game a little bit. We do just have the 3 cards in our graveyard to exile, so we don't want to take too much damage. So we might have to wait a little bit before we get our mastery down. Try to go for the board clear first would be ideal. So opponent's deck is kind of all over the place. We'll search for Azcanta down, Temple, and Strike. So we do have our 3 black sources of mana. Golden Egg works really well with Lich's Mastery. Do need to find some removal though. I guess we can take it slow. We just hold up Sabotage. Next turn we'll play the Golden Egg and Thought Erasure perhaps. Okay, they have 6 for their 5/4. So definitely going to be hoping to draw into a removal spell. We'll probably just Sinister Sabotage that. I think that's probably our best play. They did not play the Suncrown Hunters. That's a little curious. I don't understand why they didn't play it. Well, let's Thought Erasure it then. See what else they have. Buildings to close this thing out. And I don't think we need to worry too much about the Sabotage since they're not really doing too much. There we do have 4 cards in our graveyard that we can exile. So unless they play something particularly scary here, we might just go for the Lich's Mastery. Rhythm is a little scary if they draw one of their big dinos. And of course now the creatures can't be countered, so the Sabotage isn't really doing a whole lot of good. We might just want to play it safe and go for the Patient Rebuilding first. We'll draw some cards. So looking for like a Settle the Wreckage would be the ideal draw with the rhythm out. We can graveyard that. Another Golden Egg. I think we'll just go for Patient Rebuilding and get that online. Help us mill our opponent that much quickly, especially since they are on a 80-something card pile of Naya. I just hope they don't draw anything too crazy here. Okay, so they shake the foundations just to draw a card. If the Firebrand isn't really getting it done. Raptor Hatchling, okay. With a counter. I mean, we're a mill deck, so yeah, let's take it. Galt. Wow. Immortal Sun. No Planeswalkers for us. Oh, Reclamation Sage in the main deck. We can't counter any creatures, so yeah, just get our Golden Egg down. Okay, Banishing Light can deal with this Rhythm of the Wild. If we can dodge any big boys here, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll Banishing Light any dinosaurs they play. Commune can dig for 1. All they find is a land. Wow. Unfortunately, our opponent doesn't seem to have a very focused deck. Fine with taking that damage. Kaya's Wrath. I think we just want to Settle the Wreckage here. Absorb. That's a lot of mill. See how it's risky with that Rhythm of the Wild. And we'll Temple. With the Lich's Mastery about to come down, I think we'll actually keep that. Let's play a land, draw a card. I don't think we need to play a Azcanta. No, we'll wait till it flips. And now we can counter whatever they play here. And we're going to be able to transform, search for Azcanta next turn. Unless we don't get to counter anything. Nothing to counter. Okay. Hope you run out of lands. Or cards, I should say. Okay, and our opponent has seen enough. Okay. So they do have Reclamation Sage. But with 80 cards, who knows if they'll find it or not. So essentially a Naya dinosaur deck, but with lots of other stuff. Alright, I don't think we need Leyline. Intervention, maybe? Probably Tyrant Scorn. I don't think this does anything. I don't think Negate does too much. Intervention. I mean, they showed Rhythm of the Wild and the, what was it, Colossal Majesty or whatever. So maybe, but... Now what do we take out? Not sure our counter spells are as good, so I can see dropping a couple of those. Otherwise, I think our deck worked pretty well against them there. We have the sweet Vivian avatar going for them. And obviously playing 60 cards isn't really some arbitrary thing. It's there for a reason. It just helps your deck be more focused and consistent. And we start going to like 80 cards, 100 cards. And it just kind of makes it much harder for your deck to focus. So we have 2 draws to find a second land. If we do, this hand is perfect. So I think we'll try it. It's very risky, but I do not like the mulligan. Godless Shrine, hope for a second land and 2 draws. And if we do, we can Golden Egg or Thought Erasure. Okay, not the land we were hoping for, but it is a land. We're starting to fall behind here, so I'll probably just go for the Thought Erasure and surveil for a 3rd land. There's a Rhythm. Take out whatever creature they have coming up, though. So they're missing their 4th land. But if they do draw, then they can play their Raptor. Otherwise, this isn't until turn 6, and they need white mana to get there. Banefire isn't doing a whole lot. Immortal Sun doesn't really do too much. Let's Temple first to scry. Yeah, search is pretty good here. And draw that. And we can't counter any creatures, but they're stuck on lands here, so I think we just get our Azcanta online. And probably next turn go for the Thought Erasure and get rid of that Immortal Sun, because we'll give them card advantage. Yes, all the lands, please. Let's go to that Immortal Sun. Not too worried about these Banefires. I do want all the board wipes, but we do have 2 Kaya's Wrath and a Settle on hand, so we can probably just graveyard that. Help us flip our Azcanta faster and find more lands. White, white, black, black. Yep, so we do have the Kaya's Wrath open to us. Icon of Ancestry, yep. All-star sideboard option against control decks, like what we're trying to do. Let's see. I think we go for the Sphinx's Insight here. Tap out, draw a couple cards. Refill back to 7, so yeah, we're in good shape here. So we cannot counter these Banefires if they cast them for 5 or more, but we do have enough life gain that I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, if the game drags on too long, then it could be a little worrisome if they get to, you know, 10 or more or something crazy like that. 5 for 5, sure. We have a Mortify. Yeah, I think we keep it. Probably, I think we Mortify the Rhythm and just hold open Absorb or Mortify here. Feels pretty good. Our opponent can't start digging, but you know, 80 card deck. It's pretty decent chance they whiff, and yeah, that's kind of the downside. We'll start filling up our graveyard. Temple, try to scry. We're just looking for our Lich's Mastery or our mill enchantments at this point. So Psychic Corrosion, Patient Rebuilding, and Lich's Mastery are the 3 cards we're looking for. We have so much removal that we have time to get there, so it's a matter of how much patience our opponent has. Green Hydra. Yeah, let him have it. Fill up that graveyard so we can put Azcanta. Okay. So they can Oakenform next turn. Yeah, maybe we'll just... It's probably the safer play. Now we have 2 counter spells. We can probably just counter whatever creature they do find. Polyraptor, okay. It's a fun combo card. So definitely looking to counter that. I mean, Golden Egg isn't terrible. But I think we just want to keep digging. We already have the 1 in play to gain some life here later on. So here we can absorb and activate Azcanta. Of course, they're going to go for Polyraptor. We don't even want to let that resolve, so we will go for the counter immediately. And we'll see how much patience our opponent has as we are in pretty good control. There's our enchantment. Alright, double Psychic Corrosion. Do we play both? Sure, why not? See, we do have, yeah, we still have Absorb open, or Mortify. Okay, our opponent fled now. Activate Icon, they've missed the last 2 times. Let's see if they can find something here. Hey, they found a dinosaur. 7/7 trample. When it attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each land. I think we'll save Absorb for a Wreck Sage or something like that. Patient Rebuilding with 2 Psychic Corrosions. That's pretty sweet. We're gonna hope for the Azcanta activation here. Let's see if they hit this time with Icon. They're 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 now. Yep. Danger of an 80 card deck. Sure, you can have a 4/4 Drover. Do you want to hold on to this Absorb? Tyrant Scorn will kill this Drover of the Mighty. Settle the Wreckage. Alright, Patient Rebuilding with double Psychic Corrosion, so we're pretty much in turbo mode. And it can get that Banefire out of their hands. I think we just kill it now. I already know we have it. So we go for the Icon play. I should kind of hope they hit this time, and then we can just Thought Erasure to this Banefire next time. If they miss, they might just go for the Banefire play. Sword Tooth, sure. With all these lands, they have the City's Blessing. Oops, should have activated Azcanta there. Alright, filling up their graveyard nicely. Let's get that Banefire out of their hand. Nope, just looking for a Lich's Mastery. And do we care about the Sword Tooth? Probably safer just to clear. Make sure we activate our Azcanta. No white for the Aegisar. It's another problem with having 80 card deck. Your mana base can be a little wonky. We're just Banishing Light the Icon, just to shut them down completely. Well, not completely, but to minimize any potential outs. And our opponent quickly run out of time. Fine with just Sphinx's Insight. Yeah, so obviously our opponent's deck was a little clunky, but you can get the idea if you can kind of use your board wipes to keep the board clear, and then get your enchantments down, get your Lich's Mastery down. You're basically going to take over the game at that point. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't normally like playing Control or Mill even, but it's fun to kind of mix it up, and Lich's Mastery is such a cool card, had to find some way to play it. So yeah, there you go. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.